Hello, welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to try to look at my prediction of year of the nib in regards to the current crop of 2018 Chinese pens that I'm looking at. The challenge, I think, is that the writing expectations of the Chinese market are significantly different than those of the Western market. So the extra fine and fine nibs are the most popular nibs, and almost every pen comes in either one or the other, or maybe both of those two nibs, but the .38 and the .5 are extremely common, and to me, after a while, it becomes a little bit boring because the pens all pretty much write the same, but there is more variation in them than I had expected. And some of the nibs actually perform quite well, and I'm actually quite satisfied with them, being someone who likes a more expressive nib with some character to it. But I had an opportunity to get a medium soft Wing Sung nib. Where I got them from isn't available anymore, but here's an auction that I found that's currently running. If we look at this nib, we can see an M there at the very bottom. It's a little subtle, but everything else kind of looks the same, so unless you could see that M, you wouldn't be aware of it. But if you look at the tipping material on that nib, it is more substantial than you would get on a normal nib. Compare it to a fine, and there you can see the difference comes out quite significantly. And the other thing that's nice about this is it's a soft fine, a soft medium, and also a soft fine, but the soft medium has a really interesting character to it, which I like quite a bit. And I have this Plumix here just to show that the compatibility between the Wing Sung nibs and the Pilot nibs. So I put it on this Plumix pen, and it's a gold tone, so it came in gold tone and still silver tone, which I'm assuming is just the stainless steel without any coating on it. And there you can see the M is a little bit more visible. And what's also nice about this particular one in gold is it's been ground by Mike, and I think he did a phenomenal job with it, kind of like he did with the Knox nib I had on the Leica in a previous review. So we're going to take a look at the medium soft ground and how it compares to the original fine, and also some other nibs in this pen category. This black Wing Sung I've had inked up since I first got it, and I've been very happy with it. I have the Noodler's black eel ink in it, and I think it works very nice. So this is the fine nib, which we'll call the standard nib. And it just works great. I mean, it's a nice everyday writer. It starts up right away. I did reprime it again. I lowered the piston because it's been about a month and a half since I last filled it up. So you're going to get some ink evaporation, and that could lead to some starvation in the feed. But this just writes well. And I wouldn't actually call this soft. It's just not hard. But it's referred to as a soft fine, so that's how it looks. So the first thing we're going to do is compare it to another 698 in which I put in the medium nib. And I think they're now selling the 698 with the medium nib, so you can buy the pen with this nib, and as you can see, it's substantially wider and much softer. I mean, that's just nice. So this I would definitely call a soft nib. You can feel it, you can hear it. It's definitely extremely smooth, which is what you would expect. When the nib gets bigger, it generally becomes smoother because you have more nib tipping material in contact with the paper. So I was quite happy when I got these nibs, but there was a challenge. So the 698s usually come in two nibs, extra fine and fine, and the feeds are different between the two of them, which I wasn't quite aware of until my discussions with my Chinese associate. So when I put this in another 698 that probably came with an extra fine, but I've been swapping nibs around a lot, so I may not have put it in the right one or the one it was. It starved quite a bit. And you couldn't write very much with it before you had to do some serious effort to get the ink back to flowing. But when I put it in this one, it worked fine right away, and I've been very happy with it. So that's something interesting to know. The different Chinese brands are certainly experimenting with nibs and feeds, but I think from a Western perspective, there's still a lot of progress to be made. And this nib, which is the one that's been ground, and this isn't I wouldn't call this an aggressive grind, but it just puts a little bit more character into the nib. And it still has that softness to it, but the horizontal strokes are a little bit crisper, but not by a lot. And you're writing over the camera, you got to make certain that this is also more sensitive to angle than the original nib before it was ground. And because you now have kind of like this at the end of the nib versus this, you can get a wider stroke when you come down at that proper angle, which is about 45 degrees. So I'm extremely happy with the work that Mike has done on nibs, and there's still more to come. But I just want to give you viewers out there, and this is kind of running low on ink, so don't worry about the fact that it got starved out there, but it does put down a lot of ink, and I've used this pen for a while, and it is a consistent writer, but you got to make certain that you keep a lot of ink in it. One of the advantages of fine and extra fine nibs is when you're writing on not fountain pen friendly paper. So this is a fine nib, and it lays down a nice solid line. But when you go to that wet medium, you'll notice how much wider this is by a substantial amount. And there is some feathering showing up, and as we flip it over, we'll see a substantial amount of bleed through where we didn't see that with the fine nib. Obviously there's different inks here, but the Noodler's Black Eel is very lubricated and will soak in more than normal. If we go to the 618, which is one of my favorite writers, we'll see it's not quite as wide. Still lays down a nice ink. You're not going to get any variation here between horizontal and vertical because of this hooded nib. That's pretty much a characteristic of them. And then if we go to 3008 with a fine nib, we'll again see a consistent line. So if we flip this over, we'll see that the other ones are going to bleed through a little bit. When you lay down a lot of ink, you know, press the nib, get some extra ink flow, but not as certainly as the paper is friendlier to the smaller nibs versus the larger nibs. So that's one of the downsides if you don't have good paper. And I also did the same test on even cheaper paper, and it certainly does show through, bleed through on all the nibs, but obviously the medium one is more indicative of non-fountain pen friendly paper. So hopefully you've enjoyed this quick review of some interesting nibs. So thank you for watching. May you have many great writing experiences. Explore the wonderful world of nibs, inks, pens, and paper. Until the next one, This is the end. Bye. And again, don't worry about that. I'm trying to write at a different angle because of the way the sunlight's coming in here in the morning, but this is a consistent writer as the other one is, and certainly allows you to have some expression in your writing.